In this video, we will talk about how to identify the economic characteristics and competitive dynamics of any industry. We will talk about the dynamic forces that drive competition in the industry. For example, does the industry include a large number of firms selling similar products, such as grocery stores, or only a small number of competitors selling unique products, such as pharmaceutical companies? Does technological changes play an important role in maintaining a competitive advantage, as in the computer software industry? Understanding the competitive forces in the firm's industry in the first step establishes the economic foundation and context for the remaining steps in the evaluation process. Porter's 5 Forces is an analysis scheme created by Harvard Business School professor Michael E. Porter. Using this analysis tool, business managers can gauge the level of competition within their company's industry and thus assess the current and potential lines of business. The ultimate goal in this analysis is to help managers set their profitability expectations, because profitability decreases as competition level increases. 3 of the 5 forces relate to industry participants. The other 2 relate to vertical participants, the suppliers and the consumers. The first force analyzes the ease of entry for new participants in the marketplace. New entrants to any industry bring capacity and a desire to gain market share that puts pressure on prices, cost, and the rate of investment necessary to compete. Particularly when new entrants are diversifying from other markets, they can leverage existing capabilities and cash flows to shake up competition, as Pepsi did when it entered the bottled water industry, or Microsoft did when it began to offer internet browsers, or Apple did when it entered the music distribution industry. The rate of entry thus puts a cap on profit potential of an industry. When the rate is high, incumbents must hold down their prices or boost investment to deter new competitors. In specialty coffee retailing, for example, relatively low entry barriers means that Starbucks must invest aggressively in modernizing stores and menus. Remember, it is the rate of entry, not whether an entry actually occurs, that hold down profitability. Hence, entry barriers are advantages that incumbents have relative to new entrants. There are several sources for entry barriers. For example, economies of scale, which arise when firms that produce at larger volumes enjoy lower cost per unit because they can spread fixed costs over more units. They can also employ more efficient technology or command better terms with suppliers. For example, in microprocessor industry, incumbents such as Intel are protected by scale of economies in research, chip fabrications, and consumer marketing. There could be reasons like network effects, where buyers may value being in a network with a large number of fellow customers. For example, online auction participants are attracted to eBay because it offers most potential trading partners. High customer switching costs could be another reason that could drive entry barriers. The larger the switching cost, the harder it is for an entrant to gain customers. Enterprise resource planning software is an example of a product with a very high switching cost. Once a company has installed SAP's ERP system, the cost of moving to a new vendor are astronomical because of embedded data, the fact that internal processes have been adapted to SAP, and major retraining needs. Capital requirements could be another source of entry barrier. The need to invest large financial resources in order to compete can deter new entrants. The barrier is particularly great if the capital is required for unrecoverable and therefore harder to finance expenditures, such as upfront advertising or research and development costs. Unequal access to distribution channels can also make entry in the industry challenging. Pepsi and Coke pretty much control the distribution channels, and it is almost impossible for a new entrant to displace these established rivals. Government policy can heighten entry barriers through such means as expansive patenting rules that protect proprietary technology from imitation, or environmental and safety regulations that raise scale economies facing newcomers. Of course, government policy may also make entry easier, directly through subsidies, for instance, or indirectly by funding basic research and making it available to all firms, new and old, reducing scale economies. Let's now move on to the second force of competition, which evaluates the number and activity of a company's rivals. Obviously, the more established rivals, the greater the competition. Rivalry among existing competitors take many familiar forms, including price discounting, new product introductions, advertising campaigns, and service improvements. High rivalry limits the profitability of an industry. The degree to which rivalry drives down an industry profits potentially depends first on the intensity with which companies compete, and second, on the basis on which they compete. The intensity of rivalry is greatest if competitors are numerous or industry growth is slow, which precipitates fights for market share. Rivalry is also pretty strong when exit barriers are high. These barriers keep companies in the market even though they may be earning low or negative earnings. Excess capacity remains in use and the profitability of healthy competitors suffers as the sick ones hang on. The strength of rivalry reflects not just the intensity of the competition, but also the basis of competition. Rivalry is especially destructive to profitability if it gravitates solely to price, because price competition transfers profit directly from an industry to its customers. Price cuts are usually easy for competitors to see and match, making successive rounds of retaliation likely. Sustained price competition also trains customers to pay less attention to product features and service. Price competition is most likely to occur if product or services of rivals are near identical and there are minimal switching costs for the buyers. This encourages competitors to cut prices to win new customers. Years of airline price wars reflect these circumstances in that industry. Price competition is also high in an industry with perishable product. Perishability creates a strong temptation to cut prices and sell a product while it still has value. More products and services are perishable than is commonly thought. Just as tomatoes are perishable because they rot, models of computers are perishable because they soon become obsolete, and information may be perishable if it diffuses rapidly and becomes outdated, thereby losing its value. Services such as hotel accommodations are perishable in the sense that unused capacity can never be recovered. Competition on dimensions other than price, for example on product features, support services, delivery time, or brand image, is likely to erode profitability, but it improves customer value and can support higher prices. Moving on to the third force. The third factor is the threat of substitutes. A substitute performs the same or similar function as the industry's product by a different means. Video conferencing is a substitute for travel. Plastic is a substitute for aluminium. Email is a substitute for express mail. Sometimes the threat of substitution is indirect. For example, lawn care products and services are threatened when multifamily homes in urban areas substitute for single-family homes in the suburbs. Travel-related software sold to travel agents is threatened when airline or travel websites substitute for travel agents. Substitutes are always present, but they are easy to overlook because they may appear to be very different from industry's product. To someone searching for a Father's Day gift, neckties and power tools may be substitutes. When the threat of substitutes is high, industry profitability suffers. Substitute products or services limit the industry's profitability by placing a ceiling on prices. If an industry does not distance itself from substitutes through product performance, marketing, or other means, it will suffer in terms of profitability and often growth potential. Substitutes not only limit profits in the normal times, they also reduce the bonanza an industry can reap in good times. In emerging economies, for example, the surge in demand for wired telephone lines has been capped as many customers opt to make a mobile telephone as their first and the only phone line. The threat of substitute is high if it offers an attractive price performance trade-off to industry's product. For example, conventional providers of long-distance telephone service have suffered from the advent of inexpensive internet-based phone services such as Vonage and Skype. Similarly, traditional video rental outlets are struggling with the emergence of cable and satellite video on-demand services, online video rentals such as Netflix, and the rise of internet video sites like Google's YouTube. Threat of substitution is also high if the buyer's cost of switching the substitute is low. Switching from proprietary branded drug to a generic drug usually involves minimal cost. Analysts should be particularly alerted to changes in other industries that may make them attractive substitutes. For example, improvements in plastic materials allow them to substitute for steel in many automobile components. In this way, technological changes or competitive discontinuities in seemingly unrelated business can have a major impact on industry's profitability. The fourth factor is the bargaining power of the suppliers. If there are few suppliers who provide a scarce resource, competition may get heavy for that resource, thus increasing costs and eroding profits. Powerful suppliers capture more of the value for themselves by charging higher prices, limiting quality in services, or shifting costs to industry participants. Microsoft, for instance, has contributed to erosion of profitability among personal computer makers by raising prices on operating systems. Personal computer makers competing fiercely for customers have limited freedom to raise their prices accordingly. A supplier group is powerful if the industry participants face switching costs in changing suppliers. For example, shifting suppliers is difficult for finance professionals who have spent time and energy in learning how to operate Bloomberg terminals. Supplier power is also high when there is no substitute for what the supplier group provides. Pilot unions, for example, exercise considerable supplier power over airlines, partly because there is no good alternative to a well-trained pilot in the cockpit. Now let's talk about the fifth and final factor, the power of buyers. If consumer has a strong bargaining position, then this will drive down prices for the finished goods and erode profitability. Powerful customers can capture more value by forcing down prices, demanding better quality or more service, thereby driving up costs, and generally playing industry participants off against one another, all at the expense of industry profitability. A customer group has a higher negotiating leverage if the industry's products are standardized or undifferentiated, and the buyers face few or no switching costs in changing vendors. For example, the personal computer industry or airline industry or groceries. A buyer group is price sensitive if the product represents a significant fraction of their budget. Here, buyers are like to shop around and bargain hard as consumers do for home mortgages. If the product is a small fraction of buyer's cost, buyers are usually less price sensitive. Where the quality of buyer's consumption is very much affected by industry's product, buyers are generally less price sensitive. For example, when purchasing or renting production quality cameras, makers of major motion pictures opt for highly reliable equipment with the latest features. They pay limited attention to price. Similarly, buyers tend not to be price sensitive in services such as investment banking, where poor performance can be costly and embarrassing. Producers often attempt to diminish channel clout through exclusive arrangements with the particular distributors or retailers, or by marketing directly to end users. Component manufacturers seek to develop power over assemblers by creating preferences for their components with downstream customers. DuPont has created enormous clout by advertising its Stainmaster brand of carpet fibers not only to the carpet manufacturers that actually buy them, but also to downstream customers. Many customers request Stainmaster carpet even though DuPont is not a carpet manufacturer. The configuration of five forces differs by industry. In the market for commercial aircraft, fierce rivalry between dominant producers, Airbus and Boeing, and the bargaining power of the airlines that place huge orders for aircraft are strong, while the threat of entry, the threat of substitutes, and the power of suppliers are more benign. In the movie theater industry, the proliferation of substitute forms of entertainment and the power of the movie producers and distributors who supply movies are important. In all, Porter's five forces help us gauge the level of competition within any industry and thus help us assess the current and potential lines of businesses. The ultimate goal in this analysis is to help investors set their profitability expectations, because profitability decreases as the level of competition increases. Now, after analyzing the industry, in the next video, we will talk about how to analyze the individual firm's strategies.